Hey everyone, it's Sam McBride. I'm here with Kristen Holstrom, and we are back with another episode of Queens Off the Clock. So, we are really excited today. We are going to jump in a newly released investigation slash interrogation of Hunter Johnson that was from a video that was recorded November 13th of 2022. We're going to kind of go through that and some other inconsistencies and other videos, issues with credibility, and just kind of start questioning some of the stuff that I think most of you out there are already also questioning. So stay tuned.
And just remember, here with us at the Custody Queens Off the Clock, it is time to think beyond the headlines because real life doesn't fit in a soundbite. I mean, it really doesn't. We take off our courtroom heels, we pour a coffee or a glass of wine, and we dive into the truth behind the scenes that everyone's talking about. Well, not really. I don't know that everyone is willing to talk about it, but there's no fluff, there's no filters, just real talk about real cases in real life. And please just remember, as you're listening to the show, this is our opinions. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are not solving the case. We are not attempting to solve the case. We are simply encouraging everyone to think for themselves, think beyond the headlines, think outside the box, and help us problem solve. All right, Sam. So one of the biggest issues that has been popping off on Reddit and this week is the Hunter Johnson interrogation slash interview, because I think it's kind of a combination of the two and not really an interrogation.
Yeah, and this is so interesting and partially, candidly, a little disturbing to watch. And it seems like this is one of the longer interviews. And when you really have 4 unalivings taking place and it is in such a horrific manner, it's kind of first and foremost shocking to me that it's really only 16 minutes long. And from what we can see, there's clearly a portion that is cut out or redacted. So that's sort of the first red flag to me. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I think evidenced by DM's interview that we were only allowed to see a little over 5 minutes. I kept thinking, okay, this just has to be a follow-up. This has to be maybe like regarding a specific or isolated issue. Like there is no way that we have 4 unalivings and this person was here in the house and we have a 5-minute interview. So I think it's come out that we have only been allowed to see the redacted version, which I think is also the case with Hunter Johnson. There's no way in heck that November 13th interview of him was limited to 16 minutes when he was allegedly the first person to discover the 4 unalivings.
Yeah, and I mean, the part that I was most interested in listening to is the part that was redacted. Go figure. So I still don't understand why that possibly been redacted, but in any event, it was. I also was just kind of first impressions looking at the interview. He presented both eerily unconcerned with the fact that supposedly his good friend had just passed, and also he's got his hands in his pocket. He's kind of, shaking around. And so it doesn't seem to me. And, of course, it's a very hard thing whenever you are looking at individuals and how they'll react to the trauma of seeing potential victims, the trauma of a crime scene. Certainly, I understand and appreciate that people acted differently, right? But this just doesn't seem to me to be like a common way for anyone to respond.
It's so funny that you say that, Sam, because a lot of times when Sam and I are doing these shows, we kind of pick topics together in like a kind of a big picture. But then we both go and do our notes and our questions and our analysis, and then we kind of regroup. But Sam and I didn't specifically talk really anything about body language. And that was one of the biggest things I had to hit on this interview or investigation, and not even just limited to the interview and the investigation with the law enforcement. The way that he was presented or appearing at both with the body cam of the law officers on November 13th after he gave instructions for the girls, his girlfriend and the other girl, to call the police, and also at the eulogy. And I agree, Sam, we all grieve differently. I grieve very differently than, a lot of people in my family. And so I try to remember that. But I agree, the calmness and with the chaos that is ensuing around him and the discovery of the 4 unalivings, I just try to put myself in that position. And I mean, that would be like somebody giving me news about you or me finding you. I find it somewhat eerie. And I don't really like saying that because really don't like judging people on the way that they handle grief because I think it is different and unique to everybody, but I find this very hard to process.
Yeah, same. And then you kind of go back to some of the specifics about mentioning that he picked up a knife and then another red flag. Like, okay, certainly a lot of people might do something similar in a situation where they're really concerned that someone's there. So you could see that. But also, is this like another way that potentially your DNA is in there? And then it just, the whole thing together doesn't jive. It's like, we're scared. And so I picked up a knife because I think someone else might be in the house, but I'm not going to investigate the rest of the house, but I'm also not going to run out of the house. And he seemed pretty casual if anyone's seen the body cam footage of him being interviewed actually at the house. So he seemed a little too casual to be scared enough to pick up a knife, right? And so I guess all of these behaviors could happen with one individual, but it just seemed like very up and down and inconsistent to me.
Yeah, I found it to be very unusual. Again, especially if you are the first person to discover at least two of the bodies, right? At least two of the unalivings. And the first red flag with the whole thing on this issue with me is so DM called Emily and said, "Hey, we're scared." I'm summarizing this, people don't quote me on every single word, but we're scared. We heard weird noises last night. Oh, and by the way, I saw a man dressed in all black with a ski mask with, you know, bushy eyebrows, and we're locked in a room. So can you and Hunter come over? So they go over there. Hunter goes in the house. I think he arrived at King Road at approximately 11:55 that morning, and he can see Xana and her body laying on the floor. I still have a question about the amount of red stuff that would very likely be, or what you would anticipate to be around, right? Again, we've been told by law enforcement this is one of the bloodiest crime scenes that Idaho has ever seen, or Moscow. So he sees that Xana's lying on the floor. DM and BF are just relaying at this point that she had a lot to drink and she might be unconscious, but they don't know. No one's saying anything about anything other than possibly drinking too much. And then he sees Xana, goes directly to the kitchen, doesn't even check on Ethan based on his own interview, right? Doesn't even check on Ethan, gets the kitchen knife, comes back, allegedly sees Ethan, but again, still doesn't indicate in his interview that he checks on him, checks the closet, wasn't sure if anyone's in there. And then this is where he instructed the girls to make the call to 911, which was immediately thereafter. But this is my question to you, Sam. If you just saw your best friend, that your best friend knows where all the skeletons are, no pun intended, you shared laughs with, their dark moments, their happy moments, and you just find out that him and his girlfriend are unalived, and you also know two other people that you clearly had a relationship with, friendly or playing drinking games with, partying, and you don't even say anything initially to law enforcement that they live there and that there's two other girls that possibly are very likely in that house, and he didn't go check on them? What kind of
Yeah,
protective stance is that?
I will say this. I think that the everlasting inconsistencies that have followed this incident provide me with reasonable doubt on how everything has really unfolded, especially it just the inconsistencies with everyone's behavior, right? Like, we're calling 911 because we can't wake up someone, but why wouldn't you then be running to other rooms, finding your other roommates to help you try to resuscitate or bring that person back if you truly think they're passed out?
Or
And
discover the extent of their injuries? Like,
it will
how bad is it? Is it one? He doesn't know how many times that the knife was used at this point.
well, and I'm taking it a step back further. I'm taking it back to the call to Hunter initially. It's like, even if, like, let's just suspend the disbelief that everyone has that nobody thought that something very serious and terrible happened that night, and that you're calling
Yeah.
because you're scared and maybe someone was there and you can't wake a person up. The solution to not being able to wake up a friend, roommate, person, etc., would never be to call someone down the way. You'd think that you'd have precious seconds to call 911.
Mhm.
Not everyone would be prepped for how to handle an unaliving scene, but if somebody is passed out, I think it's like beyond doubt that the number one thing that you would do is call 911. And like, where's the communication or the interviews or the stories about people saying, and then we ran and tried to get so and so and ran and tried to get so and so to help us with this person. So I really don't like the passed out thing. It doesn't jive with me.
I have a really hard time. Again, there's inconsistencies surrounding DM's interviews regarding what she saw, what she didn't see, what time, where, who, what, when, why. But I just have a hard time that we're still referring it to as just our friend looks unconscious when we know so much more now. I just, and maybe it was dark, was down the hall, and, she had been drinking all night. I get all of these things, but it's still hard for me. But I agree. Even if she's passed out and she's unconscious, that still requires emergency medical treatment, right?
Right. And so, but at the very least, like, believe it, believe it, believe somebody sees it and sees their friend passed out and thinks my best option is not to call emergency services, but is to call someone else. Like, okay, believe it. But you can't then turn around and ask me not to have reasonable doubt about what's happened. And that's what this all is about, candidly, in my mind, is that the story that has been told, the narrative that has been told, is inconsistent. Is it inconsistent because there's a nefarious reason for it, or there's a huge cover up for it, or there's an alternate theory of what happened? Or is it just that everyone decided to jibe together and change a story for no reason whatsoever, just because that's what they thought to do? That seems odd. But either way, it just kicks up that doubt. It's like, this doesn't make sense at all. And then, watching these interrogations, investigations, I don't even think you can call this an interrogation.
You cannot.
This,
You cannot.
this
I think I talk more strictly to my 5-year-old who makes a mess and doesn't pick it up than these people. It's almost like they came with the onset that they were automatically already cleared and didn't come from the mindset that we have 4 unalivings, 4 young college students in a small college town, unalived, and everyone is starting off as a suspect, which is kind of like, investigation detective 101. I feel like they were already starting with the premise that everybody's already cleared because they were worried and they were standing outside the house. I think we've been around enough cases where Sam and I have had to do our own investigation with respect to domestic violence and the quasi-criminal or sometimes criminal components that come with our cases to know that you have to do the same work to clear someone as you do have to have more information to keep moving forward in either path.
No doubt. And again, I just think it's bizarre. I picked up a steak knife, heads up,
Okay,
because
before we get there, but here's the thing. So when DM's whole thing is, I saw someone wearing a ski mask. It wasn't a voice I remember. They were in all black. I think I heard someone say that someone was here and they had a knife, but then we call our friend the next morning and just say, hey, I think Santa's passed out. So at this point, when Hunter's going to the house, I think he even says this, is I was just going there and it wasn't uncommon for these girls to call me if they hear a weird noise. Like I'm kind of like the protector in the group, right? So he wasn't going there with a steak knife, or overly concerned that there was a safety concern. He was just coming over because he thought maybe DM and BF were just being a little sensitive or a little, panicky, right?
call the police. Call 911. Call 911. Do it.
Okay, right. So here's the next thing.
Run. Also run out of the house. Go
You're gonna have
run
fun with this one,
far,
Sam,
far away.
because this will get your analytical brain going. I know this will get you. Okay, so Hunter instructs the girls to call 911. 911 come in. I am shocked with all the body cam footage. Okay, all the body cam footage. Law enforcement's walking in. They already know, that he is the one that discovered at least the 2 bodies. And he's walking in, they're walking in with his hands up like this, just I would be like, oh my God. Like, I don't even know that I would be able to stay still, which is 2 separate issues. One, his behavior and conduct. And 2, why are you still in the house? Why are the police allowing him to follow the police up the stairs, walk around the house? Like, and you can see all this on the body cams, but why are we not immediately removing anybody that is contaminating a crime scene?
Not only that, why are you so relaxed in a place that presumably whomever did this could be coming back to?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so when I sit like this, I'm usually like either trying to self-soothe a little bit, a little stress, a little anxiety, kind of get my breathing, or I'm like super chill. It's kind of one of the two, but I'm definitely not kind of doing this, like, walking around very calm after I just discovered what I'm telling you I discovered.
It's bizarre. It is beyond bizarre.
Okay, by him still being in the crime scene, what does that do to the evidence?
So I think it's a great point, and I think one of the biggest issues with crime scenes in general is that I think I don't wanna say the average person, but a lot of people just assume that all crime scenes are managed in a particular way, that protocol is followed, and that's just not the case. The problem with anyone really being in the crime scene after the incident has occurred is the potential that the crime scene is then tampered, right? So if somebody, presumably Hunter Johnson, is running around, moving items, changing things, cleaning up something, whatever he's doing, now the crime scene isn't as it left. Now there's another possible reason that his DNA could be there that would potentially give him a reason to have it there without being a prime suspect. And we're certainly not pointing any fingers. We're just bringing up the fact that, look, like, it doesn't make sense for you to be in an active crime scene. And if you are still in the active crime scene, I'm confused because I think your fear should have already kicked in unless you think that there's no one going back because maybe you know that no one's going back because you feel safe. Why do you feel safe? Why do you feel like this is over? But okay, like suspend that. Now, once the police are in, why isn't he immediately removed from the crime scene
Agreed.
and interrogated, like
And dropped
actually
off,
interrogated?
cornered by himself, like, not sitting there in trios and quads, and we're all having time to talk about what we witnessed and what our stories are, and, I'm not saying that these kids were all sitting there trying to match their stories, but if I'm standing there listening to someone, it might also potentially change my version of events because every experience would be unique to that person. But I mean, it was just like, okay, so I'm watching these body cams. I'm like, why are they not removing him or why is he not removing him? And I also found it to be very peculiar. I want to use my word carefully that he didn't initially right away tell law enforcement, like the minute they got there, that Maddie and Kaylee lived in the house or Kaylee, allegedly moved out, but was staying and spent the night in Maddie's room. But at least that there were two roommates that were there last night are possibly up there in that room. And he never went to check on him. Like, I find that he's coming in to
Or
be the
even yell
protector.
for them. Anything.
Yell. I mean, yell, or the second the police there, which we would see on the body cam, is, hey, there's two other roommates in this house. I haven't seen them all morning. I didn't go check. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm in this moment of chaos, but like, please, someone needs to go check right now. Well, we're just like, like it wasn't until they were outside that I think someone asked who else lives there. And then on another note, he actually claims, I think it was in test investigation, right, Sam, that he wasn't that good of friends with Kaylee,
Yeah, I think he actually kind of said that he didn't really know her.
which is okay. That's not also a very peculiar statement.
Well, and then this brings up a big issue, credibility. So like, oh yeah, I don't know her. And then many of you, I'm sure we could put it up, but many of you have likely seen the video where there was a noise complaint and he's walking out of the screen door right behind Kaylee, whom he doesn't know, right? So now your credibility is starting to become an issue with me. Maybe you just forgot, right? Or maybe not, because maybe you just told the investigator that you knew the code to the house and that's how you somehow entered, which is that's kind of the first time I've heard that is the code entering the house. I thought the door was open, but in any event, so you don't know one of the roommates really at all, but you do know the code to the house. And I think his explanation, when questioned, like, well, how did you know that, was just like, oh, kind of, yeah, well, we knew them all, like, common knowledge. So it's like, how many people have a code to this house?
And I think he said something like, oh, it's just, it's a really small group that would have it. And then we find out through all of the information that's slowly been dropping that it definitely was more than a handful of people that knew that code. But if I know someone's code to their house, I definitely don't not really know them. I mean, that is crazy. I mean, honestly, I didn't have that many red flags with him initially. And then I just kept going more and more and just jotting down my notes. And I was like, he presents as this protector, but doesn't check on his best friend, doesn't tell the police officers immediately upon their entrance to King Road that there's also two other people that live here, didn't go look for them. His behavior just seems very disgenuine and very emotionally unattached.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that brings up like my biggest point to this is like, just to be clear, we're not accusing Hunter Johnson of
Yeah, yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But And we're not saying that he did this, but we are saying that it doesn't make sense. He's clearly not credible, which is evidenced by not only this interview, but the things that he's saying in this interview are pretty trackable to other video and images that we've seen. So his timeline's not really jiving with me. His story really isn't matching up with the others. And it just doesn't smell right. It just, none of it smells right. And it all brings up a big fat question mark for me. And yeah, I'm interested to really kind of get into some of these other interviews too. I think we could do.
Yeah, I don't even think I think we have to wrap this one up shortly because we're going to have part 2 of all the other stuff that I think we can talk about with HJ, and I'll leave it here with this one today. But even at the eulogy, that they had for all of the victims' families, and he was one that spoke about Ethan, his best friend. And, I listened to it a couple times because I listened, and then, you go down the Reddit rabbit hole or TikTok or, YouTube, and other people, have their opinions. And then I went back and I listened to it usually a few times. But I almost found it like he was kind of interjecting himself in the middle of this kind of national media story now. He's the one that discovered the bodies. He's the one that went to protect them. He's the one that DM called. It was Emily's boyfriend, but still, he comes in as this protector mode, but then doesn't really protect. But then also, I think he would know, hey, by me being in this house, me touching things, me walking upstairs, me walking around the living area where everyone would gather that they were allegedly watching TV in the night before is contaminating the crime scene. If I know that my best friend was just unalived in this house, the first thing I'm doing is getting the heck out of it. Because I know that every step I take, everything I touch, basically the air I breathe, potentially is going to cause harm to the crime scene.
You know what else I want to know? What exactly was said between Hunter Johnson and everyone at the house? What was said? Because there's 16 minutes of an interview. Some of it's just asking his information, and none of it's that meaningful. Like where's the part where you go, what happened? How long has she been here? What's your response to that? Where is like, if you notice in a lot of these, there's no narrative of what the other person said to them. They're just saying, this is what I saw anyways. They're not going, what happened last night? And was there this last night? What
Where were
happened?
you leading
How
up?
long have you
Where were
seen
you
her?
leading up
How
to the
long
time
is
you
she
grabbed the
here?
kryptonite?
Like, where is the panic interrogation that would naturally occur between any individuals that are there? Like, that is just totally missing from all of the interviews. Like, why I would make, if I showed up at that, even if I'm like Mrs. Protector, I'd be like, why didn't you call the cops? What?
No,
Why?
I
And what's
agree.
the
And I
response?
also know
And
that
not
we're
even
both
just what did
lawyers.
I say? What was the response? What's the reason?
How
What
did
did
they
anyone
act?
provide a reason why the cops weren't called? Did anyone provide a reason why Hunter Johnson was the call, or him and Emily were the call? Why? Why aren't they questioning that?
And there
Why
was
is
actually
nothing being
multiple
questioned?
voices on the 911. You hear Dylan, and then I believe you hear Emily, and I can't recall the other girl that was there, her name. All these uh characters or their names are all on the Amazon Prime documentary that came out, which that's a whole nother show on that. I found that to be the most depicted, calculated, like I'm going to present everything in this way. And, just looking at it as a whole, I like I said, I want to continue and explore, and Sam and I can ask these questions, and we want to hear what your questions are, and give us ideas. I think I'm going to go find every video that's available on the internet or what's left of Kaylee and Hunter in a video together, since they don't really know each other that well. But P.S. I have her code to her house, and doesn't make any sense. But back to the eulogy really quick. It sounds like he's complimenting Ethan, but then he's also saying, yeah, he owed me this money, and I get maybe he's trying to make lighthearted jokes about their friendly banter. But it just kind of it evidences like a sense of loss, but not a super genuine sense of loss, more of a forced. And this is how I am supposed to feel, and this is how I need to present my feelings, rather than me just going up there and saying, like, F, I just lost my best friend. I don't even know how to describe all of these feelings I'm having and how to process. But again, these are our opinions. We are simply analyzing facts that are available that have been released. I agree, Sam. I would love, love, love to see the entire investigation and interrogation, whatever you want to call it, of the whole thing, because we are only getting to see what I think they believe is helpful to the mass public, not something that would cast reasonable doubt.
Or maybe there's not a bunch else out there as far as that is concerned because the investigation was not thorough. But
And
who
I
knows?
think that more of it is what it is, you know? But like the knife, and oh my gosh, Sam, you saw that video. Tell me you saw that. I think I know a couple really good content creators have released it in the last week where one of the officers is telling a fellow officer when they're in the house with the body cams, saying, "Yeah, I told my homeboy, that Hunter was the one that was scared, picked up the knife, and that's where it is." I'm like, why are we just assuming that that is what happened? Did we test that knife for other DNA? Like, did we test any of the other knives for DNA that were in, the knife set? Like,
Well,
why
and
are we believing this is all true?
yeah, and one last thing. No, I agree. But one last thing before we close is just, you hear a lot of this stuff on the internet, kind of like, well, no credible sources are saying this, no credible sources are saying this. But like my problem is the credible sources aren't looking very credible. So what are we supposed to do?
I don't know, but once again, I leave with more questions than I came with.
Yep, here we go. So we will be back.
So thank you for joining us today. We are having so much fun. Again, this is nothing more than for educational entertainment purposes. We are simply relaying our facts, our analysis. We are hoping to engage with you guys of what other people believe to be their personal facts, their assumptions. We are not trying to solve the case. We are not trying to take anything as a matter of fact or truth. We are just simply using what has been released, the little thereof, even though it looks like we're getting everything, and just having conversation about it. We are not pointing any fingers or anything specifically at Hunter, at what we're talking about. We are just simply kind of summarizing everything that's going on and just going, well, why wasn't this done? Or was it done and we don't know it wasn't done? Right? I
Yeah, and
think
I
that's
think the
the question I
the
keep
big
having.
conclusion I have right now is nothing jives.
So if you like this, please, please, please make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Make sure you comment, leave us questions. We love all the feedback, and we're trying to do some video responses to some of the questions that we've got. So look for those in the comments. And thank you for sharing your time with us. We had a great time.
Until next time.